456 days. That's how long it's been since the first lockdowns on March 13th, 2020 were put in place. And it's been a long road since then, but finally, here we are, well over a year later, and things are finally dying down. The world is returning to normal, people are going back to their lives, the economy is recovering, and things are just generally going better. It's been a tough year for just about everybody. There's no denying that. A lot of people have lost friends, family, and there's been a lot of unrest. The world has seen chaos in the past year, a lot of protests, civil unrest, but we finally overcome that. Things are finally shaping up for once, and the world's looking a lot brighter. But I think it's important to remember both the good and the bad things that happened during the past year. So here is a year in review of 2020 to 2021. 2020 didn't even really start out that great to begin with. The first major thing that happened was the death of an Iranian general by a U.S. drone strike, and then almost a week after, the death of Kobe Bryant in a helicopter crash, as well as the massive Californian and Australian wildfires that were raging on prior. And then, of course, in March, the COVID-19 pandemic hit and sent the world into chaos that we are still experiencing and probably will be experiencing to some extent for quite some time. Without a doubt, the pandemic was the defining event of 2020, and in the future, when someone says the year 2020, I have no doubt that they're going to be thinking about the pandemic first thing. COVID-19 stopped normal life for quite a long time. It upended the economy, caused civil unrest, and just about everywhere in the world was affected by it. As a cause of the pandemic, millions of people from everywhere across the US and, to a greater extent, the world became unemployed. Jobs were almost impossible to find. Then later in the year, towards late May, George Floyd's murder caused widespread protests in the country, which unfortunately oftentimes turned into riots that sometimes killed people. As well as the international protests to the event, there was also long, widespread demonstration in Portland, Oregon, and while all those events certainly took their toll on people, there was a lot of good in there during that time as well. For example, not soon after, the first COVID vaccines were being deployed, and by December, people were actually starting to get vaccinated. And now, there are thankfully millions of people across the world vaccinated against COVID, and mask mandates are even able to be lifted because of how many people are safe now. Another example is how a year ago now, graduations and end-of-school events were canceled, but now, graduations are back on and they don't even require a mask mandate. People had to cancel their vacations last year because they just simply weren't able to go places, but now, you don't even have to wear a mask again, as long as you're vaccinated. We're at a point where we can finally return to normalcy. After the long, over year and a half of just pure chaos that we all experienced. There's also the advent that from the protests about police brutality, a lot of reforms have been made, and many things have improved in that regard since then. In the past year and a half has showed that if people band together and help each other, things get better. So people have been fairly charitable since then. People are a lot more willing to help each other out now because they realize just how beneficial it will be. A lot can be said about the past year. It was horrible, it was long, tedious, but in all that, there were still plenty of good things that came out of it. I believe we collectively have learned a lot from the past year and a half. How to help each other, how to overcome almost the impossible, as well as having newfound appreciation for just the normalcy of life. Hopefully, with the way things are shaping up, the next year and a half will be significantly better, and that's all we can hope for.